Hey there guys, and welcome to a kind of special little video. This is a review of a kind of HDR light kit. This is by Render King. It's called C4Dome, kind of C4D dome. And I've been playing around with this for the last kind of hour or so, and it is exceptionally good. You can kind of see I've been playing around just with these models which are in the content browser, free for anyone, and just by placing a few lights in and kind of moving them around, I created this really cool render, and it took 20 something seconds, and the quality's amazing and so easy to use. So I'm going to kind of go over what this kit is, how it's kind of a bit different from the rest of them, and all that. So I'll load up a new scene, and I will go to, in fact, let me put it back to the startup menu as well. So this is exactly how Cinema 4D would look like for you when you open it for the first time, except for maybe that button there. And we're just going to go to our plugins and go to C4Dome, and instantly you can see it's actually changed the layout for you, so it's actually specifically for this plugin, and it's really useful. You can see if we go into our render settings, there's actually a load of presets down at the bottom for us to use. For this one, I'm just going to use physical draft. It's what I've been using for a few ones, and it kind of shows you quick results of kind of how your thing will look. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our model. So I'm going to go to, I believe, broadcast 3D objects, food, and we'll grab our beer. Obviously this looks quite small, and it's meant to be because a bottle of beer isn't 2 meters long, it's a few centimeters, so this is actually made to scale. So we're actually going to zoom in here using the camera controls inside of this plugin. If you don't really like the controls, it's not really a problem. You can get your own camera, turn off the camera in the rig, and here you can just use your own and use it like normal. But for kind of pretty cool animations and kind of making it a lot easier to get smooth animations, you can just use these ones here. So we just zoom in, go down a bit. Oh, that's kind of tilted up. Yeah, there we go. Zoom in, and we get this really useful camera control, so we can create really nice kind of zoom ins like so. We can rotate around at any point, and it kind of just simplifies the entire process. And of course you can kind of pan away and tilt it at different angles, and you can do whatever, and you only have to keyframe these few values rather than kind of trying to make a smooth kind of camera movement. So that alone is really useful. So we're just going to zoom in a bit more here and kind of line it up, and we'll just do a render straight away, and instantly it's looking nice. It's got an HDR already built into it, so this is the default render. There's a few things you can do to the environment, so we can turn on the floor, and we can also have reflections, add a bit of blur, a bit of ambient occlusion, and then when we render we'll get a floor in here as well, which I'll just crank up the reflection just so you can see it a bit more. So now you can see we get a really nice reflection, seamless floor and background, so it's really good for kind of product shots. You can use this for anything. I can see myself using this for a lot of text renders if I'm just creating some basic kind of text animations. Really useful for that, really good for showing off products, and it's kind of designed so when you're using animation it's not kind of flickering around, which is a problem with a lot of HDR kits and all of that stuff. So really useful here, and I really like it so far, but we haven't really got into even a few of it. If you want to, you can just hide it, including seen by camera, and that didn't do anything. But yeah, I think don't know what I did wrong there. You can actually kind of hide it, so you're just rendering a black background, but that one didn't work at the moment for some reason. Probably because I had the floor on. In fact, yeah, definitely. If I turn off the floor and hide the background, now we get just black background with it all rendered out, so it looks lovely. There you go. So if you want to make it so it doesn't have a background, make sure you turn the floor off as well. But this is what we want for now. We want the nice reflection, we want all that. You can crank up the volume, the strength of the reflections and the blurriness, but a nice subtle one I think always works the best. So we also have a preview, so we can change the size down. You can kind of see what we're looking at, make it X-ray so you can still see your object, so you can line it all up, and we can rotate this around. But what I really like about it as well is you also have the reflection preview, so we can turn that one on, shrink it down because this is pretty small, and we have an option for independent reflection rotation, so we can actually rotate this separately to the light source, so the reflections can actually be from a different area. It might not make it like the most realistic, but it can certainly bring out the most in the renders and make it look a little bit better. And so we can blur the HDR, we can make it so the reflection is actually stronger than the light source, or the light source is stronger than the reflection. So really useful controls to really fine tune all of this. And now we come to the main part, which kind of just throws away all other HDR kits, and that's actually loading in all the HDRs. You have this really cool controls, and so I can just drag in the light source, and so this is how you can control, you can have a different light source and a different reflection HDR, and this is where it's really cool. So we'll go into the Dome studio. It comes with all these different studios, and I'll get into a bit more in a minute about just how different and awesome this is. And let's just drag a color one into the light source, and then you just click insert images, and you can see down in your materials bar that actually updated. And so now when we render, we actually get a different reflection and light source, which is really cool. Again, we can just kind of rotate this round, so I kind of want that yellow to kind of hit it from the side, and I'll crank up the brightness. You can see this preview actually changes as well, and then when we render it out, now the yellow is kind of hitting from the left side, and if we just blur it out ever so slightly, we'll get some really nice kind of blurred reflections and light source. And again, if we aren't a big fan of the reflections, we can drag in the reflection source and maybe choose, I don't know, this one, and just drag it in, insert the images, and render it out. And now we have different reflections to the light source again, and it all just works brilliantly. And so next I'll just do what I had before and just kind of clone the beer bottles around, kind of make it a little more interesting. And so you can really see just how quickly this renders. I mean, this is draft, so you can obviously crank up the settings for the final render when you're kind of leaving it, leaving your computer whilst like you make dinner or go out, just letting it render away. But you can see even on draft the quality's unbelievably nice. You got these amazing reflections kind of bouncing around, all the light sources hitting all these objects really well, and you got the nice reflections on the floor as well. And for 24 seconds whilst screen recording, that's pretty impressive in my opinion. But what really is cool, and I know I keep saying that, but I do love this kit, is if I go up a bit, we have floor, middle and top, and that's a little bit different. And this is where it gets a little complicated because you do have to do a little bit more to get this to work, but really cool. If we go into the floor, we can pick a different floor, we can pick a different middle for the HDR and a top, so you can create your own HDRs. You're not limited to these very small kind of kits that you get. You can actually make your own, and this is awesome. You can drag in a floor down here, you can drag in, I don't know, maybe the middle one here, and for the top maybe we'll get a bit of colour and go for this. If I actually do it properly, drag it on there, and so this is going to go onto the reflections. If we insert it here, the only thing you have to do is then go into the luminance here and change this, and if you change them all to add, now you can see you created your own HDR from these 3 sections, and if we just render that out, we'll get completely different image that we've made ourselves. We're not just using the kind of 10 or 20 different HDR images that normally come in these packs. We've made our own from scratch using 3 different sections. You can kind of customize this to your liking, and it's just awesome what you can do with it. And again, if we don't like where it is, we can go into the camera rig, maybe rotate it, lower it down a bit, zoom in, and straight away we can render. It's perfect pretty much every time. You do have to be quite careful, but that goes the same for every scene. Yeah, I can't believe, like, I always thought like Grayscale Gorilla's kit was good, but that is just kind of drag and drop, and that's kind of very limited. You can only maybe adjust the brightness, the blur, very basic. This is designed with kind of graphics, motion graphics in mind, so it's really cool. I believe, I haven't played with some of these too much, but you can kind of get previews of your scene without kind of rendering, just to kind of speed up the process. But personally I haven't really played around with it, but you can see there in a few seconds you get a really nice idea. I think you should just be able to rotate around and it'll kind of update. It'll take a few seconds because it's still got to take into account all your geometry, reflections and all that, but you get a good idea kind of how it's looking. I think if I was just to put in if I close out of that, any second now, if I haven't crashed it, if I just put in a sphere, shrink it down, and we'll just throw on some foam, why not? Now if we get our preview up, I imagine this will be pretty quick in giving us an idea, and we have the quality, the kind of quality of your preview. So you can see here we can really fine tune. If we maybe want to kind of get it up a bit, can move it up, and it just kind of stops you having to keep doing all these renders over and over. You can really fine tune it in this kind of preview until you're happy with what you want. Really good way to kind of just adjust some of the settings. So maybe you want to rotate the reflection or crank up the reflection strength, brightness, and it'll kind of update for you in the scene. And you can either add GI, so if you want, you can see now we're getting all the GI bouncing around, and we're just rotating the scene around until we get something like what we want, and then when we're happy with that, we can go in, render it out. Obviously as a simple scene it is still pretty quick to do it this way as well, but with the more complicated ones, definitely just play around with all of these settings. There's loads more you can do with it. You can actually make your own texture, but I personally haven't played around with that yet. I might do a follow-up video to this with a bit more detail on all these special settings, because I know you can actually kind of paint away at your textures and actually make your own, which I think is really cool. And you can, I think you can make your own HDR files from images. But again, I'll leave a link to where you can download and buy this, and there's several tutorials where the guy goes over some of these more advanced settings. But really cool plugin, and I definitely recommend buying it. There is a coupon code in the description, so you can actually save $10 on this using that coupon. So if you want it a bit cheaper, use that code. And yeah, just really, like, if you ever use global illumination or HDRs to light your scenes, this is what you need. Like, it is so helpful, better than anything I've ever used, and you can just customize it so much more. There's so many little things that weren't included in the other one which they've thrown in here, which have just made it so useful. So if you're going to buy a plugin this year, this month, this term, get this one. I promise you won't be wasting your money. So I'm going to render out a few things and kind of post you a few example pictures at the end of this video, so you can kind of see the kind of things you can create within a few kind of clicks. But other than that, please buy it if you ever think you need to use something like this, and you won't regret it, I promise you that. So have a great day, everyone, and I will speak to you guys soon.